Hello, my name is Marjaneh Rouhani, and I'm very honored to be in your presence today on Thursday, October 7th, 2021, and that is corresponding with Iranian calendar, 15th of May, and the Kingdom calendar or Shahanshahi calendar that was restored during the phenomenal era of peace and prosperity for the most volatile region in Middle East during the Pahlavi era, 2580. And it's again an honor to be here because Iranians have been fighting for their law and order during the past 42 years. And they have struggled through thick and thin. From the first day Khomeini was exported from France to Iran, along with a lot of what seemed to be many intelligence agents rather than people from Iran. And Iranians don't consider this, whatever you call Islamic Republic, legitimate or a legal institution by any means. And you can see it by many documents that have been revealed through intelligence services, any historical evidences, live testimonies. And Iranians many times have come out and have shouted for their own law and order, their own system that is under a current of what is going on right now. And as EU and all these people are trying to struggle to somehow restore JCPOA, and every time you open the news, there's something about this JCPOA that is a dead horse that people keep beating on that. They have to deal with any entity who wants to basically negotiate with Iran, and Iranians need to deal with Iranians, not people who have been installed by the foreigners. And Iranians are quite nationalistic people, and we've known that through history and through thick and thin, through Genghis Khan, through 1400 years of enslavement and trials of destruction of our culture. People have held on tight to what they know and what they have, and they have transmitted. And it's a very dear history for historians actually to review, and many who have reviewed Iran history and Iranians' love for Iran, they fell in love with Iran and Iranian culture, and even decided to be buried there. And one of the most scandalous one was, I think, a German professor who had fell in love with Isfahan and wanted to be buried there, and this occupying regime prevented that. And that was, birth and death is quite dear among Iranians, and we do have a lot of ceremonies around those events. And it was quite a sad, tragic moment for Iranians to witness that it was not allowed by the installed regime, who has actually fallen apart, cannot really negotiate, protect the borders, protect the individuals. The inflation is soaring. The poverty line is 70%. Children don't go to school. They cannot take care of anything, from health to economy. And it's very important for all of us to basically to respect the Iranians' wish and the will. And you see on social media, despite a lot of censorship that we see going on, actually, yesterday we were some of the leaked documents showed that even Google searches were being reported to intelligence community. And we don't know what's that about, in the sense that, every country has to protect their own borders. But at the same time, we see other events evolving. And this may be the only platform, basically, that Iranians have had for many years, the 10 years, that, really with a shoestring budget, Iranians have held it together to contribute as much as they can during difficult times, where they have forced migrated to kind of really share information. And it's been quite an accomplishment among the freedom fighters from every country. And it stands out now that we know, all these news or fake news are related to this big, phenomenal, huge mega monies and investment groups that are quite few in numbers. Like 3 investment groups own all of media, and they do a massive propaganda around anything. You open the television and everybody's saying the same phrase, the same thing. So it's quite an honor to be in this whole, even the media we have, Iranians have developed with the I want to say tireless efforts of our producer Siavash and Mr. Aryan Vatankhah and Ms. Mahnaz and other contributing anchors who come in and talk about history, talk about solutions, and talk about various things. That is quite an accomplishment. Now, they may not agree on everything, but it's quite dear. But nonetheless, I don't want to digress from what I started to say when Google searches are being monitored, for example, by intelligence community, and that every country should be able to monitor their borders, monitor to make sure that the citizens are safe. But at the same time, we see something developing on the side, and has been developing on the side for many years. These large companies that are that they have borderless and beyond the imagination of any country's GDP or income, and they are larger than any many countries, and they can make an influence so that it's not a democratic or a democracy that we all have learned to yearn for or want, or to install and elect an official, where people, even when they get elected through voting system, even if the voting is in perfect shape and condition, these companies are so huge and so big that they are able to buy anything and anybody, and everybody has a price. And then we see the demolition or controlled demolition of what our ancestors have really given a lot of effort and blood and tears to make this system for us, basically. Meaning you work hard, it's based on merit, and you try to give a higher platform to your children, and then everything around the nucleus of family, love, culture, and respect for elders. And we see all this unheard of really demolition of these relationships, these human relationships. And it's because of the new age of technology. And it seems like all the ethical professors or ethics experts have been on a holiday for the past 20 some years. And all this technology that has been available to some countries have been kind of, they've been doing their studies, gain of function of viruses, gain of function of biometric measures, or monitoring. For example, if anybody has an iPhone, I don't know, it's Apple 10 or something, there's the heart shape app that was installed there in I think in some version from a few years back, that you cannot even delete that. And so they have been kind of the corporations to take over the will of people, and which, when you are part of a corporation or a CEO of a corporation is about the bottom line or the money. And they have what we call bylaws, and the bylaws are not about the human rights. It's about the bottom line. It's like, these are the people that lay off people for the bottom line right before Christmas, because that's the fiscal year that ends. And it's just against that control system where people are involved, the humanity is involved, is kind of really getting brushed aside. And more and more every day, people are waking up and understanding what is happening, because really nobody's against technology. I don't think. I mean, there are certain groups where actually they may be the refuge of humanity at this point, because they never accepted technology. And, like the Amish, for example, who still use their own way of life from the 1800s, 1700s in the United States. And they have their own farming, their own internal system that is quite organic and separate from all these GMOs, from seeds to humans now. And today was an interesting viral clip of like a very strange being, which seemed like something between a human and an animal, which are the studies that these corporations have been doing without permission, probably, and without ethical overview, or what is happening, or is for real, because nobody is trusting the mainstream media. And then you don't want to publish as the alternative media, you don't want to publish something that is going to turn out to be false, and then everybody kind of say, see how the alternative media is lying, and they're conspiracy theorists and all that. And this whole competition at some point, or this whole open up game at some point, has to give in to humanity, because that is who we are. That's what we strive for. And we want our children to have a loving life, a smiling life, healthy life. And we pain when a parent has a child who is suffering, who is in a hospital, and we try to be supportive. I mean, that humanity that we have always carried within us, we cannot let go of that. And it seems like these corporations that are taking over, and actually I think Facebook and Google or some other company was asking a seat at the United Nations. And United Nations has been basically setting out since 1992, when they met in Rio with thousands of NGOs. They put out this climate crisis agenda, and where two of the scientists actually who were very, if you want to kind of say right and left, and it's kind of confusing at this point who's right and left. They were on the left side, and when they were on in the conference and they witnessed what we were going for, or what the United Nations Agenda 21 was aiming for in Rio in 1992, they unfolded all of these issues that we are experiencing at this moment. They became they were environmentalists, and they went out and wrote a book, and they expressed their concerns that this is going to be no good for Earth, it's not going to be good for the planet, and it's not going to be good for humanity. So you don't have to be part of a party. Our party is a humanity party. We live we work to live, we make money to live and enjoy life, and this is just the opposite of and the corporations are doing just the opposite of people have been the control over the corporations, and we have made them maybe big because we've been excited about their technology, but now they have the money, and they have the money gives them a tremendous power. They're up to no good. I mean, we see their means about the bottom line. I mean, they're not giving any studies about what they're doing, or reporting to people, but they want to see that the United Nations, which was formed around the basics of human rights, and now we are at a point where even breathing is a privilege, is not a human right. One of the people who works, who has a title at the United Nations, was saying that the clean water is not a human right. And we see all these forced medical decisions that are being shifted to the governments or the corporations, and the governments cannot do it because of the Constitution or the supreme law they operate under. And they have been shifted to the corporations, and the corporations are doing the work to overrule HIPAA, overrule patient rights. The hospitals are not allowing companions. And we went through many pandemics, I think, for several hundred years, I think. And the most recent one before this one was HIV, and we were holding people's hands. We were helping them to be comfortable. We had their family at their bedside. We did not quarantine anybody. And we were quite careful to make sure they are quite comfortable, and try to make it easy as possible. So, I mean, there are other information that is unfolding on that side, and people who were actually demonstrating in New York at the time against Dr. Fauci, as a matter of fact, and somehow the same person is managing this similar situation, and a lot of but just the reverse in a way that if you have a person, we all have witnessed, if somebody sneezes, everybody runs away. And 10 years ago, if somebody sneezed, or 5 years ago, if somebody coughed, I mean, people would not run away or say, "Are you doing okay? Are you you need to stay home?" And it's gotten to a point. For example, I want to give an example. If you have a child in a preschool and they're sick, they call you from work and say, "Lady, come and pick up your child. He or she is sick." And it's not like the whole school is closed down. And so we are seeing a lot of strange things because we are in a paradigm shift. We are seeing corporations taking over our constitutions, and we still do have choice to choose our future, to choose our freedom, to choose humanity. And the blueprint is in our hand. The constitutions, which are the supreme law of the land for any country, is in our hands. Now, this program was developed as a constitutional movement, along with Dr. Saeed Hamzavi, who we have this program in Farsi on Mondays and on Tuesdays and Fridays, and then on Thursday we have it in English. And we do believe that the Constitution 1906, for example, in Iran, Constitution 1906, along with the reforms of 1963 and later on when the new covenant from the king of Iran, who is in exile, and issued a decree, and people have united around that, is our document to really establish a legitimate democratic institution to be able to have the will of people and have the resources, instead of all these endless wars and all of this, fear-mongering about the biowarfare and, the new strains of this, the new strains of that. I mean, viruses have been here billions of years before we humans were here, and then they're going to be here after we are gone. But we see that there's this shift about this fear of shouting fire in the theater. I mean, if there's any virus, we already have herd immunity. There are many freedom fighters, as a matter of fact, are exposing every day. They're talking about, how can you not have religious exemption? There are people who really don't believe in abortion, for example, and using fetal cells, and Project Veritas, exposed from somebody who works for Pfizer and says that, they use fetal cells. I mean, this is just without consent, without informed consent, without information giving to the person. It's even they have accepted the situation and they have trusted the system. Now you have a situation where the trust is ruptured, and that's why you go to any stadium now. We have this huge number of thousands and thousands of youth are yelling these bad words against the president of the United States. And now they have a code word for it because one of the anchors was trying to cover up what the people were saying. And so the code word for it is "Let's go, Brandon." But nonetheless, we've never had that. And then we have this huge situation where the president's presentation about debt ceiling. I mean, of all people, I'm not good with money or no economy. Economy has its own language. Money has its own language, and it's not taught in schools. And that's where actually the whole source of the problem exists, as a matter of fact. But he was apparently talking about the debt ceiling, and that's where everything went mute and the program was disrupted. And this is not the first time that's happening. Or we see that he's making major announcements and he's not at the White House, and they have a different theater stage set up. And people are really concerned about that. And, the concern is valid, but we have to kind of read between the lines that there has been a takeover and a shift from the power shift, where actually the countries or the legislative branches and the judiciary branches and the executive branches of the government are on a gag order under the influence of the corporate takeover of the world, of the resources of the world. Because, actually today on Twitter and social media, interestingly enough, Jack Dorsey and also Edward Snowden, they had tweets saying what happened in 1971. And I think Edward Snowden had a list of the inflation or the prices of goods in 1970, what anything would cost in the United States. Like new house would cost $23,450. The average income was $9,400. A new car would be $3,450. Movie tickets $1.55. Gasoline 36 cents per gallon, postage stamps 6 cents, and a bread at 25 cents, which I want to say that I really like this type of bread. And I went to the market and I usually buy it at 99 cents, and I bought it at $5 the other day. And I said, oh my goodness, this is just a basic need. And where are we going, and how is the economy really gonna end up crashing an ordinary life where we are not, because the government is printing and printing and printing money. And what happened, we have different eras where we had the dollar backed up with gold, and then it was switched from, there was no backing. Basically, the dollar became a standard, and anybody else, the owning gold in the United States was made illegal by FDR, and people had to turn in their gold to the government. And then later on, Mr. Nixon made it legal again. And through all of this, basically, we are at a point where there is no backing of the currency, the dollar, and it's just waiting to crash, basically. And there are deadlines that are due where we have to pay a huge debt. For example, we had like a few $1 billion national debt, and now it's about $25 trillion. And with the new spending or new spending bills that are coming to Congress, because in the United States, Congress has to approve this expenditure, and that is just a lifeline that people do have access to their constitution when everybody seems to be on a gag order, as a matter of fact, because even from the tweets, you see that nobody is able, that they're forming, people who are against what's happening about the corporate takeover, they are asking questions, and it's not like they are making steps or they are capable of communicating with their constituents, or when they do, they get exposed or they get into trouble, or and what is the solution? And this program was actually formed for Iranians, because we do believe we have a blueprint, we have a constitution, and by sticking to the constitution, we can maintain the integrity of our country, our resources, and restore peace in a most volatile area or region in the world, as a matter of fact. And it was very, very peaceful during the 37 years of Shahanshah Yameh, and he was, I think, one of the most influential and geniuses of, I don't know if that's a correct way of saying it, the geniuses of the current century in politics, and maneuvered the politics in a very, very phenomenal way where people got engaged, but what failed was our media. And the reason Iranians are quite alarmed about the situation in the United States is that we see the same thing, that the media is failing people. Media is not distributing information. And yes, there is alternative media, but the mainstream media that has millions and millions of platform, they're not really communicating with the people to say, do you want a corporate takeover? Do you appreciate YouTube taking off two doctors discussing a situation after 5 million people have viewed it on YouTube? Or, who is deciding at this point what stays on and what gets censored? I mean, we know science, technology, humanity has really grown during history, where we have been able to communicate and ask questions. And when we cannot ask questions and we are, these forced masking, for example, which seems like the forced hijab, in my opinion, because there is no real scientific backing up about, they just say, even Dr. Fauci said, there's nothing about it. Even Rashida Tlaib yesterday was saying, she was caught on camera saying that she was wearing a mask just for show. And, we are living in a transparent era. And so all this information gets viral, and how to kind of really put and compile all this information. The compilation leads to chaos and anarchy, because now we have a stadium after stadium cussing at the president of the United States, and that's not censorable, and that is something we need to listen to. And this is not going to have a nice ending in the sense for either side of the aisle, in the sense those people who are going for humanity versus people who are trying to eliminate humanity or install artificial intelligence. And we know the Georgia headstones where we didn't know where they came from, and they have this bizarre futuristic message, the way they clothe even, and these people like Klaus Schwab, like a Klingon, wearing clothes, or Mr. Zuckerberg looking like Captain on a starship track. I mean, the way basically you wear in, the first thing we do in psychiatry is like we look at the people, how they're dressed, and we kind of get intuition into what is the buildup of the thought process of that person, for example. And what is the message there? Because when you get up in the morning and you put on your clothes, and the choice of clothes is given the message of what your thought process is. And even the tattoos are quite meaningful. The piercings are quite meaningful. And I never forget my dear friend had a grand rounds about tattoos and piercing, I think, and it was quite illuminating, but I don't want to digress from that, from the topic. But anyhow, everything in psychiatry, or what we do as a human, has a meaning. And Iranians, because we have thousands of years of culture, they are, I think, on autopilot of being a psychiatrist or psychologist, and they interpret issues automatically. So a lot of times when we see these people where, for example, the way they're clothed again, the choice of clothing, they're not with the fashion, for example, or the norm of the normal curve of the 68%. They want to say they're separate, and they're looking into the future. And this future if they are running the media, if they're running the predictive programming on sci-fi or the dystopian movies, you see that it's quite depressing, and the future is quite dark and terrible for most of humanity. And in a sense, with this predictive programming, they're trying to give a message to all of us, and that's another thing we need to be aware of, where we as human beings, organic human beings, not half AI, half human, or as organic human beings, I can change the end game. We can make the decision. I mean, when you see you have masses and masses of nurses or healthcare workers who are not injected, being fired and being replaced by uninjected individuals, then the story is not about safety, is not about health, is not just the use of I want to say public health, or some people calling it now public health. I'm sorry to say that. They are abusing the vocabulary and this war of words that has been created. They go and burn stores or things, and they're called, the left or liberal. No, that's not liberal. That's anarchy. That's frightening. That's terror. When the Attorney General, for example, issues a letter to and declares Americans who go to kind of be involved with their children's education, like they don't want their 5-year-old have access to these explicit sexual content that is in the library of schools. And then this letter issued to call these parents domestic terrorists, that, the point of the gun has been turned from, the citizens who are paying taxes, who are law-binding, who are fighting to keep everything together. And actually the weight of the success of this country and most other countries who do have a constitution depends on the people who are willing to give up their lives and their ordinary lives, time to inform other people and to stand up for what is right. And when that lady came out and said, look, I think Mr. O'Keefe asked her, why did you come out? Why did you leave? Why are you revealing and exposing this information? She said, because it's the right thing to do. And we see that in a human history, we do the right thing. Now, if we go to the other side because they do believe, the technology has accomplished so much that we can replace every human on this planet, most of them with artificial intelligence. The drones are going to be dropping gifts, there are going to be some people who are going to be living off the grid, and they're going to be looking like Mad Max, and they're going to be outcasts of society, or creating a caste system. You're looking at a very disturbed, psychotic or psychopathic way of thinking of life, where there's plenty of resources on this planet, and but greed is quite powerful, and a lot of them. A lot of these people are entrapped within their own God complexes that they will never die, or the technology is going to make them live beyond human years. And that may be possible. That's quite possible. But at the same time, the meaning of life, if you even think about the past, I mean, the value of human being is in, the impact of in this short time we're given on this planet. What is the impact we make as a human being? A machine or a plastic or, an iPhone will never probably be biodegradable or something, but human is degradable. And that makes it even more valuable. And we've had Cyrus the Great, we've had Darius the Great, we've had in Iran, for example, Mithridates or Mehdad the first and Ashk the sixth, who actually freed a whole nation, a whole Greek nation, composed of many religions, many racial backgrounds, and that's the humanity we are talking about, not the greed of like a Scrooge counting gold coins right before Christmas, where we have the famous story, of course, and then of course Dr. Fauci on microphone goes in and says, "Oh, I don't know if we are not going to have Christmas." And Christmas in every culture, actually, as a matter of fact, is celebrated, and to kind of really eliminate all these celebratory or celebrations or happiness and sense of love, getting together, invite other people to your home, hug other people, be close to each other, go against what these people are saying. When we had the most viral before modern medicine, we used to play in the soil and basically we're quite immune, and our immunity system, actually we inherited from the Neanderthals the most powerful immune system. And as we have kind of merged with the modernity, because we are away from a lot of germs, maybe we don't develop antibodies, I think, and that's how a lot of kids started having allergic reactions, or all of a sudden autism, all of a sudden a lot of, and there has been some changes during the past, where past 100 years, where there's a strange diseases forming, basically. And there are many ways of explaining it, where it's not the time right now. That's a different program altogether. But we have to be aware of this engineered economical crash that is being unfolded right in front of our eyes, where we see people are prevented from working, people are fired, so docks are not unloaded, chain of products are disrupted. This is all engineered, and this is all preventable. And this is headed for this, we saw, the Met Gala was an example of how these celebrities, they were all B-grade celebrities, most of them, who showed up at the Met Gala that is announced, that is held every year in New York City. And it looks like all of them are in their bunkers that are, hiding, waiting for the collapse of something. And we see it unfold in front of billions of all of us. And that, we know that there is this social credit system, for example, that's been implemented in China, and the people who are pushing for this whole agenda, they are for China. And through the social credit system, basically they can stop your spending because you spend too much CO2. And actually, MasterCard has installed it, as I said it in the program before, where your credit card stops working after you spend too much carbon dioxide, which is a necessity, as a matter of fact. We live in a biodome where all these gases are necessary for human survival. And whoever has come up with this brilliant idea to kind of charge people or tax people on invisible gases, they should be they must be laughing all the way to the bank, because I mean, this is the first time in history where people are going to be penalized for passing gas or spending gas or something that is just not normal. And nature has its way of finding its way, and the nature is held by the human beings who are organic beings, and they talk to each other. And that's where the masks come in, when everybody started saying, well, wear masks inside the house. It was symbolic of not talking to each other. And it was symbolic of not relating to each other, not seeing each other as human beings. We see the police, the riot police, for example, they have to cover all of their, they wear very strange clothing, because once you make eye contact with another human being, the likelihood of you wanting to hurt them plummets nearly to zero. And that's, again, humanity, not these strange garbs of these black coverings and looking like Darth Vader. And we don't want to go there. And I think if we want to go there, there should be a referendum. There should be a discussion with people, instead of, now for the first time in history, I'm sure there has been collapses that has been engineered before, during Depression time, when the gold was confiscated from all Americans for the first time in history. Where the currency was not backed up, all these strange decisions that were influenced by certain influential groups. And, sometimes we see certain things collapse on their own because of strange loopholes that are in the laws. And in the United States, as long as lobbying exists, where the corporates are able to influence the elected officials, we're going to have these issues. And now that we have seen it, where it leads, then we can have the option for the first time in history to solve it and eliminate a lot of loopholes that have landed us here, where everybody's living in fear of tomorrow. Are we going to have a job? I'm forced to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't feel it's right. All these things that are just normal human questions. People want to wait, and they don't want to, they trust themselves in terms of surviving. And basically, a lot of people are passively immunized, and this abuse of healthcare, where doctors cannot talk or cannot communicate. Those two doctors, I don't know, they had a very healthy discussion, and we're used to that, in medical school or even during residency. After every surgery, there's a huge discussion panel to kind of see how things could have been done better, so that the next patient, we don't make any the mistakes that maybe had happened, or even perfectly. But nonetheless, we are here, and this is something that we can choose to change at this moment, because everybody's aware. And I think when people are aware, they have choices, and this is not, they're all out again. We are staring into the eyes of evil. And they could not have chosen better actors, in the sense that Austin Powers himself could have not chosen better actors to kind of know our Superman. I mean, these look like even Luther or Dr. Evil, or, the looks are even similar. I mean, this is just an amazing observation that you don't need a psychiatrist to even interpret it. Normal people with ordinary education or non-psychiatrists, everybody has their different expertise. I mean, I don't know money, for example. I know medicine, but you really don't need a doctor to really figure out what's going on. You don't need an economist to see what's going on. This is our human nature that figures out that, what if the banks go to zero? What if the cryptocurrency goes to zero? It's a digit. What if, where am I going to be able to, now I'm used to urban living. I haven't planted a bean seed for the past 45 years. Are we going to starve to death because these 1% of population who call the 99% of the population useless eaters? And I want to say it's just the reverse, as a matter of fact. I mean, these people who are plotting against the majority of people are useless. I mean, show me what have you done lately? I mean, really, you have to have your merit and your work value, and not just words, to have the merit to even make a decision. And that's where the elected officials come in to help all of us, the legislative branch and the presidential branch and the executive branch, the judiciary branch, who seem to be on gag order. That's where they come in. They have to, whatever contract they have made with these corporations, they have to announce it null and void, because the constitution of any country is supreme to any unlawful contract that has been made. And I think coming out and announcing it will liberate humanity and will save not even save humanity, but also will save the name of all these people who are trying to transition to this topic. Unfortunate situation where millions, if not billions, are looking at forced engineered starvation, migration, dehydration due to lack of water, inability to pay taxes, to own their own land or manage their own cattle, and forced to live on things that human beings never lived on before. This planet is rich enough for all of us. Well, thank you for being with me, and I will be with you tomorrow again with Dr. Saeed Hamzavi, and I bet on humanity. Peace be with you.